We're going to talk about estate planning and some of the things that we're seeing and some of the issues that we're addressing for our clients. One of the biggest challenges people have is making sure that they are passing assets on to the next generation in the most tax efficient and cleanest possible way. And we get a lot of questions around this subject in the office. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. And I also want to mention, if you do have questions for us and you want us to answer them on one of our shows, we'd love to do that. If you want to shoot me an email, Stewart, STEWART, at ClearPathRetirement.com with any questions that you might have, we'd be happy to address those on air for you in one of our next shows. But getting back to estate planning, so, one of the things that people will ask constantly is, hey, Stewart, I've got a will, so I'm good. And, that's a loaded question, but we're going to try to talk through it here a little bit. So, if you're okay with probate, then yeah, you're probably fine. What a lot of people think wills avoid probate, and that is absolutely not true. What actually gets probated is the will. So if you have a will in place, you are able to do some things with that as far as designating where your assets should go and some other things you can accomplish there. But, it does go through probate. There will be a probate judge will look at that will and will try and disseminate your assets in the manner that you have in the will, and you are leaving that a little bit up to interpretation there, so be very, very clear if you have a will. But, what a lot of people are trying to do is avoid probate.
Yeah.
And in order to avoid probate, you have to go a step further. And what we do a lot is we do something called a living revocable trust for our clients. It's a very basic trust, very easy to do, but what it allows you to do is it allows you to bypass probate. And, what a lot of people don't understand is that probate is not only a lot of paperwork, it's a lot of jumping through hoops, but it costs money too, right?
It costs money, it costs time, and we've heard a million different stories about the probate process. We've talking to different people, and sometimes it's fine. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's quick, but it's becoming increasingly more challenging. The government's always finding new ways to tax money that's being passed. We had the Secure Act in 2019 that changed the rule on inherited beneficiary IRAs, and we see a lot of mistakes happen in this manner, and they're becoming easier and easier to do. One key mistake we always have heard of is people would say, hey, I'm going to pass all my assets to my son. I'm going to pass the IRA to the son, and he's going to distribute it to the other kids, right? That's an extremely a bad tax mistake. Sure. And these types of things are becoming more and more difficult. So estate planning is becoming extremely critical, and revocable trust sounds complicated, but Stewart, we've gotten it down to be really quite manageable and easy to set up.
Yeah, for years I was looking for the right solution for my clients and to actually get these documents in place. And what I was realizing is, though we would refer our clients out to attorneys to go get these trusts done, what would happen is they would just never actually go pull the trigger and do it.
Right.
People have a little anxiety around visiting an attorney's office and going through that process. And it can be a little bit of expensive process. And so what we found is that we found a solution that we were able to partner with a network of South Carolina attorneys. And through this network of attorneys, what we're able to do is we're able to build out a living revocable trust document for you sitting in our office. And we are able to get that trust all built out and set up exactly the way you want it. And then we're able to share that virtually with one of our attorneys in our network They take a look over it. They make sure the language is correct. They make sure everything is in perfect order, and then they will send us the completed trust. We will witness it and notarize it right in our office, so you never have to leave our office, and we're actually able to get this done, along with things like healthcare and financial power of attorney, which are extremely important documents to have. And we can do it also at a much less cost to the client because of the partnership that we've set up. We're going to talk a little bit more about this here in our last segment. We will be right back and we'll dive a little deeper into this. Welcome back to ClearPath Retirement Radio. I am Stewart Smith and Mitch Davies is here with me, and today we are talking about estate planning and using living revocable trust to avoid probate and all of the cost and just hassle involved in it. What we've typically seen is that the process of probate usually costs around 3 to 7% of whatever the estate is valued at. And on a very modest estate, a $100,000 estate, you're talking about $3,000 in probate costs.
Yeah.
And what we have seen is in 2026, because of the partnership that I just mentioned that we have with a local network of attorneys and our ability to dramatically reduce the cost of getting a living revocable trust set up for you, we're able to set up a trust for much less cost than what a $100,000 estate would cost to probate.
Certainly. And we're also able to accomplish it in a manner that's super efficient, because if we've been already understanding your whole asset picture, we're understanding the whole financial picture, we're able to, estate planning ties in really well with financial planning, right? When we're trying to plan for 15, 20 years down the road, we understand all the different things we're trying to do. We're getting to understand the family dynamics and how we want to pass assets along. This ties in with financial planning. Again, especially these days as tax law is becoming more and more complicated, it ties in well.
It does. It really goes hand in hand, and having our firm do these things for you when we already, like Mitch said, we already have our arms around your financial picture intimately and understand every detail of it, it just makes the process that much more efficient, because then you don't have to try and come get all the information from us and then take it to some attorney and take the chance that information gets lost in the process. It's just all streamlined and super easy for you. But what happens is once you get that living revocable trust set up, a lot of people they're very confused about how do we fund the trust? What happens from here that makes us able to avoid probate on that trust? And the things that you want to put inside of a trust, let's just start there. The things that you want to put inside of a trust are things like real property, things like land, things like your primary residence, things that don't necessarily have a beneficiary designation on them, things like investment accounts, insurance policies, bank accounts if you've done like a POD or TOD.
Yeah.
Those are going to bypass probate anyway. But the things that won't will be like real property, vehicles, things of significant value that don't have a beneficiary designation on them. And the way that you get those inside the trust is you retitle them.
Yeah.
And basically, like, once we have the trust established, then what you want to do, let's say you want to start by putting your primary residence in that trust. What you would do is you would pay a title company a minimal fee to retitle the home in the trust name instead of your name. And once you do that, that asset is now owned by the living revocable trust. You are in complete control still, because it's a revocable trust you can make changes to anytime you want. But now the trust owns that home, and so when something happens to you, that trust automatically is going to go to whatever beneficiary you designate in that trust for that asset.
Right.
and there is no probate. So it is an easy, clean way to do that and make it so easy for your heirs to where they don't have to worry about this whole probate process. So the other thing that the trust does is it keeps things private. One thing that we've seen is a lot of our clients are very private people. And wills, a lot of people don't understand this, but a will is public knowledge. So if you pass assets through a will, that is public knowledge, and that is available to anyone who wants it.
Right.
But trust is private, and that is private information that nobody can gain access to. Yeah. We say a trust protects you from creditors and predators.
Yep.
The other thing is senior fraud in this country is at an all-time high thanks to artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is causing major issues when it comes to senior fraud. So having your assets inside of a trust will put an extra layer of protection between you and any fraudsters out there trying to gain access to those assets, which is extremely important in today's environment. So when you add up the fact that it avoids probate, it avoids cost, it's very low cost to get set up nowadays in 2026. The excuses for not having a trust are, there is no excuse, Mitch. People should have a trust now. This is, again, the other thing that we see constantly is how many families have we seen, Mitch, that are literally torn apart over how assets get distributed to children when parents pass away. We have seen children of clients of ours that siblings that never speak to each other again.
Right.
We have some siblings that we work with that I used to work with their parents before they passed away, and because they disagreed on how the assets were distributed after their parents' death, after their second parent died, because they disagreed and had a really bad falling out, they have not spoken to each other in 15 years.
Yeah.
And that is just heartbreaking. And that was because there was a will and not a trust, and because the assets were not quite interpreted the way that I believe the parents actually intended it to be. And one child didn't agree and got an attorney and contested the will, and it just goes on and on. A trust will help to really make sure that those type of conflicts don't come up, and that things are much clearer in how those things need to be handled. The other thing that a trust can do is, a lot of times we have folks, we just met with a couple that was telling us, hey, we do want to make sure that our children receive the assets when we're gone, but we really don't want these assets to all be distributed at one time, which is what a will do. A lot of people don't realize it, but you have no control over how that's done with a will. You can control where it goes, but it's all at once. A lot of times what we hear from people are, I would like to stagger how these assets get distributed over a number of years. I'd like there to be distributions every 3 or 5 years, and maybe they have spendthrift issues with the children where they don't feel like they can handle all the assets at once, and that they'll go through them quite quickly. And that can be accomplished with the trust. So that is another reason why you might want to consider getting a living revocable trust and starting to put your assets inside that trust. A lot of times we also get the question, what is the difference between a living revocable trust and an irrevocable trust? So that is, to keep things pretty simple there, the estate tax exemption in this country is right at about $15 million per person. So if you are a single person and you think you're going to die with more than $15 million of assets, or if you are a married couple and you think you'll be over that $30 million threshold, then what a lot of people will do is they will establish an irrevocable trust, and they will start moving assets into the irrevocable trust at least 3 years prior to their death.
Yep.
And what that does is, if you do that planning correctly, it gets those assets out of your estate for estate tax purposes. If you don't do that planning, then you're going to pay estate taxes on everything over that threshold of probably in the neighborhood of 40%, I believe it is at this point. So that's significant. So that's really the main reason we see why you want to make a trust irrevocable as opposed to revocable. But listen, if you're not in that situation where you're going to have more than 15 or $30 million of assets, then a living revocable trust will really accomplish everything you possibly could need it to accomplish.
Absolutely. And like Stewart, like you said, there's really, nowadays, there's no reason not to have one, right? It's simple to set up. It's going to establish privacy. It's going to avoid probate. And, you know, what I like to describe it as like a funnel almost. I love when we sit with a client and they've got 2 life insurance policies, they've got 3 investment accounts, they've got 2 pieces of property, they've got a couple annuities, they've got all these different things, different beneficiary designations. We can just take all that and funnel it into the trust, just make the trust the beneficiary of everything. Everything that we can't title in the trust, make the trust the beneficiary, and then they know, okay, all I have to do is change the trust, because again, it's revocable. It's not irrevocable. You still own all of these things. So we just change anything we need to update on the trust, we can. But it makes it so simple for everybody. It makes it so simple for the beneficiaries. It makes it so simple for the owners to just say, okay, the trust is now the beneficiary of all these assets, and I only have to change one document. I don't have to go in and change beneficiaries and everything. So I just love the simplicity of it.
It is. It is a wonderful tool. We have found that it really helps to simplify things for folks. And if you think that you don't know, is a trust for me? Is my will sufficient? Just come sit with us. Let us do a review of your will or your trust. Let's make sure that, you know, it is set up exactly the way you want, or if you want to get one in place, please just visit us at ClearPathRetirement.com. Hit that Get Started button today, and we'll be happy to sit down and go over that with you and see what makes sense.